Hey guys, today I'm just going to go through your study guide. Remember, 20 of these questions are going to be on your Unit 1 test, and this is over integer operations. Make sure that you've attempted the study guide before you've looked at this video, and then feel free to skip around to any questions that you needed help on. All right, let's get started with question 1. It says, what is the opposite of negative 71? The opposite of a negative is just a positive. So that means that 71 is its zero pair. That is the opposite of negative 71. Number 2 says that Noah has mixed up the stat sheet from the football game Friday. Which situation results in a 0-yard gain? So we can go through each one of these. If he gains 4 and loses 6, he'd be at negative 2. If he has 2 runs for 5 yards each, he would be at 10. And then the ball is run 6 more yards, he'd be at a positive 16. So we can rule that out. Remember, we're looking for 0. If the quarterback is sacked for 8 yards, nope, that's just negative 8. And then D says a gain of 9 yards, then a fumble for a loss of 9. So a gain of 9, loss of 9 ends up being 0. Number 3 says that you and a friend are playing a card game. Red cards are negative, black cards are positive. Your goal is to draw 6 cards in total to create a sum of 0. So a sum means all your numbers are going to add up to equal 0. Right now, so far, you have a negative 5, a positive 3, and then a negative 6. So far, you have negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2. Minus 6 is negative 8. So far, you have negative 8. So you're going to look at your answer choices and see what you can get to get a positive 8. One easy way to look at this is that if you look at A, it has all of their 0 pairs listed. So it has a positive 5, a negative 3, and a positive 6. So each one of these has its opposite. This will end up equaling 8. If you look at B, a 2 plus a 3 plus a 2, that only gets you to 7. So you don't have enough to make it 0. So the answer to number 3 is only A. Number 4 is a question that ties in some science stuff. It says atoms, which are the things that are all around us, the tiny little bits of matter that make up everything. It says that they have protons, neutrons, and electrons. Protons are positive. Neutrons are 0, neutral, and then the electrons are negative. So that's what it says. Protons have a positive charge. Electrons have a negative charge. It says an atom with a neutral charge, neutral just means 0 charge, is one where the number of electrons is equal to the number of protons. So you're looking for 0 pairs. So the only element here that has a 0 pair is hydrogen. 1 proton, 1 electron. That would end up canceling each other out to make 0. Number 5 says, what's the absolute value of negative 49? So remember, the absolute value bars represent distance, and distance always has to be positive. So if it's in those little bars, remember, it squishes it to make it absolutely positive, so it would be C. Number 6 tells you the temperature was negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit at 8 p.m., so we'll go ahead and plot that on the number line. Then it says a cold front lowered the temperature over the next hour by 3 degrees. So if it lowered it, it went to the left, 1, 2, 3. What's the new temperature? We're at negative 13 degrees. Number 7 says Angelina overdrew her account by 35. That means she took out more than she had. So she has negative 35 right now. She then quickly deposited. That means she put in her babysitting money of $25. What's the current balance on her account? If you were at negative 35 and you go up 25, you didn't have enough to get out of the hole. You still overdrew up to $10. So you have $10 that you're missing you need to put back in. So the answer would be B. Number 8 says the difference of negative 84 and 59. Difference means subtract. So negative 84 minus 59. If I'm down 84 and I go down 59, I'm really down. I'm really negative. So the answer would be B, negative. Number 9 says the sum means add, of negative 72 and 9. Is that positive, negative, or 0? Obviously, it's not going to be irrational. We don't know what that means yet. If I'm down 72 and I only go up 9, I'm still really in the negative. So it'd be B, negative. Number 10 is just a really quick, simple subtraction problem, but you should see negative 3 minus negative. When you see a minus negative, remember you see Bob. So really what we're looking at here is negative 3 plus 3. And you should realize these are 0 pairs. Means that they cancel out, and the answer will end up just being 0. So it should be D. Number 11 says the product of 90 and negative 10. Product means times. And if you have a positive times a negative, your answer will always be negative. So B for number 11. 12 says the quotient. Quotient means divide of 27 and negative 3. So you have a positive divided by a negative. Your answer has got to be negative. If a positive divided by a negative always equals a negative, you can roll out A, you can roll out C, and it's divide. So you're thinking about 27 divided by 3. The number should be smaller. So you can look at B. It should be negative 9. Okay, so 13 is asking about a bird flying about at an elevation of 120 feet above sea level. So here's our bird. And then a fish is swimming 110 feet below sea level. There's our fish. Which of the following statements is false? So let's go through it. We'll mark out the ones that are true. It says A says sea level represents 0. Yeah, that would make sense. 0 is the ground. B says the bird is further from the sea level than the fish. So the bird is 120 up. The fish is only 110 down. So the bird is further from the sea level. C says the bird and the fish are 10 feet apart. Nope. You can look right here and see that the distance between 120 all the way down to 110, that's way more than 10 feet. That's way more than 10 feet apart. But let's just make sure D says this scenario will be best represented on a vertical number line. Remember, vertical means how high you can jump, how up and down you are. So that would be, so D would be true, meaning that your only thing left is C. 14 says the product means times of X and Y. So X and Y are just variables that represent numbers. So they're just letters that mean just two numbers is positive. So when you times two numbers, a number times a number, it gives you a positive answer. So what could be true? Well, we know that a positive times a positive equals a positive, and a negative times a negative equals a positive. So that only means it could be C. If X and Y are both negative and they times, it would be positive product. For number 15, it says which expression, which number sentence is equivalent or equal to 10 minus 8. So let's just real quick do 10 minus 8. That's a quick way to do this. That's 2. And then we're going to go through all of our answers and see which one's equal to. So 10 plus negative 8, that does equal 2. Remember, plus negative is the same thing as minus. So we already can tell that it's A. But just to make sure, 8 minus 10 is negative 2. So we can't be B. 10 plus 8 is 18, so it can't be C. And 10 minus negative, that means plus. So 10 minus negative 8 is also 18, so it can't be D. For number 16, it says, which of the following is a correct interpretation of the expression 3 plus negative 7? So what would you do if you saw 3 plus negative 7? Let's use a number line. So when you see a number sentence, you look at the first number and you start there. So start at 3. Then you see a plus, which means and then you see a minus. So go back 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I would start at 3 and go 7 to the left. So that would be A. 17 says find the missing value. That means what can I put in for the question mark to make this true? Well, you can start by just plugging and chugging. You can put all these different answers in and you can check it. So we can just look at negative 3 plus 6. Does that equal negative 3? Nope. Negative 3 plus 6 would be a positive 3. If I put in a 3, that would be a positive number, so it can't be 3. If I put in a 9, that would be a really bigger positive number, so it can't be 9. That means that it has to be negative 9. I can check it by putting it in. Negative 9 plus 6, that does equal negative 3. Number 18 is kind of hard. It says which expression represents the distance. If I'm talking about distance, I should be talking about absolute value. Remember, absolute value, those two bars, that means distance. So I can go ahead and already cross out B, and I can cross out D. And it says between negative 4 and negative 1. So I'm going to count between negative 4 and negative 1. So on a number line, I can see that 1, 2, 3. They're 3 apart. If I look over here, that's the difference between negative 4 and negative 1. The difference between them is 3. So difference means subtract. So it has to be A. C says the difference between negative 4 and positive 1. So that one doesn't make sense with negative 4 and negative 1. So it has to be A. For number 19, it's asking about which expression is equivalent. That means just which number sentence comes out with the same answer as 10 minus 12. 10 minus 12 is negative 2. So I'm just going to go through for each one of these and figure out what else gives me negative 2. So for the first one, it says negative 4 plus 2 in the absolute value bars. Negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. and then absolute value makes it positive. So it can't be A, because I'm looking for a negative 2. For B, I would do what's in the parentheses first. So 5 minus 6 is negative 1 times 2. That equals negative 2. So it's already B. But just to check, if I look at, for C, 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus negative 8 is a positive 2. So it can't be C. And then for D, 0 times anything is just 0. So I can go ahead and cross out D. Number 20 says Mr. Siskey spent a total of $180 on a gym membership over 6 months. It says he spent an equal amount each month. So that should be your clue for division. If I spent an equal amount, I divided that 180 equally between 6 months. I can go ahead and rule out the times one. It's not going to be times. So I spent 180. So I should be looking at a negative 180 divided by 6 months. So it has to be A. Negative 180 divided by 6 months equals negative 30. If you were looking at B, you should know that 180 divided by 6 doesn't equal a negative 30, so it can't be that one. And then this one doesn't make sense with our problem. 21 is asking about number 20, and it says, what does the negative 30 in the equation tell us? If we're dividing up that 180 between 6 months, then that 30 would be what I spent each month. That means I spent $30 each month on the gym membership. 22 says that Death Valley, California is 282 feet below sea level. That means negative, so negative 282. And then Black Mountain, Kentucky is 750 above sea level. So this is where Black Mountain, Kentucky is 750 above. And it says how many more feet above sea level is Black Mountain than Death Valley. So it's asking for what's the space here, what's the difference between here. One way I would look at this is let's get from negative 282 up to 750. So we'll start by going up 282 to get to 0. So up 282 to get to 0 plus the 750 that we need to get up to Black Mountain, Kentucky. So 282 plus 750, that would be 1,032 feet. Also, you can think if it's asking for the difference between these two places, you could think of it as 750 minus means difference, the negative 282. Remember, minus negative really just means plus plus. So either way, the yellow part here would be 1,032 feet difference. 23 is the same type of question. It says Westmoreland, California is 157 feet below sea level. And it says that Dallas, Texas is 430 feet above. And it's asking for the difference between these two places. So it's asking for the difference between two places on a number line. You're going to subtract. So you would do 430 minus negative 157. That's the same thing as just adding. So if you look at it, it's just the exact same thing as adding. So 430 minus negative means plus 157. So the difference would be C, 587 feet. 24 says in Anchorage, Alaska, the temperature is negative 13 degrees Fahrenheit. A cold front is scheduled to come in and drop the temperature 14 degrees. So it's at negative 13, and it's going to get even colder. It's going to go down 14. So if it's already negative 13 and it goes down 14, the only thing colder is negative 27 degrees. 25 is another elevation question. It says New York City has an elevation of 410 feet above sea level. Omaha, Nebraska is about 3 times as high. So if you do this, you're going to think about what is 410 times 3, or really what's about 400 times 3 if we're rounding. And about 4 times 3 is 12, and you should be thinking about this as 1,200. So if you're just looking at 400 times 3, you're looking at 4 times 3 is 1,200. So you should be looking at A. 26 says the average high temperature on Mars is 70 degrees Fahrenheit. The average low temperature is negative 225. And it says, what's the difference between the high and the low? Difference means minus or subtract. So you should be looking at this as 70 minus negative means plus. Remember, there's Bob. So 70 plus 225, that would be 295. 27 says Jeffrey plans to rent a beach house for his sister's birthday. The company charges a one-time fee of $25 plus $10 per hour. So $10 per hour, and he rents it for 6 hours. So if it's per, that means times. So this is the problem that we have. We'll use our order of operations and do 10 times 6 first. So 60 plus the 25. That ends up being 85, and it asks us how much will the change be in Jeffrey's savings? So this is from Jeffrey's perspective. So Jeffrey now owes $85. So it would be B. For number 28, it says a dolphin is swimming 10 feet below. That would be -10. So he's at -10 to start with. It descends. Descends means go down. So it goes down 12 before rising 4 feet. So we end up going back up 4. So I just took this apart and wrote it one piece at a time. And then you're going to look and see which one of these matches that. So we can see that C is the only one that matches the one that we wrote. Number 29 is just some addition and subtraction. We're going to go left to right since it's just addition and subtraction. We'll start with 8 plus -7. So that's 1, 8, and go down 7 leaves us with 1. Minus -6 plus 1. 1 minus -6 is the same thing as add. So 1 plus 6 is 7, plus 1 is 8. So we should be able to see that our answer is B. 30 is about Randy playing a number game. He starts with 6, then he adds 4. So we'll go one step at a time. He's doing one thing at a time. So we have 10. Then he multiplies by 5. So times 5. Now we have 50. Then he divides by -10. So a positive divided by a negative is a negative. And 50 divided by 10 is 5. Then he subtracts 2. So -5, go down 2. We should be now at -7 at the end of the game. For 31, all these numbers are next to each other in parentheses. So we're just multiplying. And we'll go one thing at a time. So -2 times a -1 is a +2. A negative times a negative is a positive. Times -3 is a -6. 2 times 3 is 6. And a negative times a positive is a negative. Times -4. A negative times a negative is a positive. And 6 times 4 is 24. Times -1 is our last step. So a -1 times a +24 means that we'll get a -24 as our answer. All right, let's look at 32. Using a number line, it says, which of the following would result in a product? Remember, product means times, less than -9. So all these are multiplication problems. The first one says -9 times -9. That gives you a +81. So that's way up here somewhere. So that's not less than -9. B says -2 times 1. That equals -2. A -2 is over here. It's closer to 0. So it's on this side still. It's still on the right. So -2 is greater than -9. You'd rather owe me $2 than owe me $9. So it can't be B. C says -10 times -2. That's -20. So now we're less than -9. -20 is farther this way to the left. So it has to be C. Just to check, D says -3 times 2. That's a -6. So we're still not there. We're still right about here. So we're still not less than -9. The only thing less than -9 is a -20. Number 33 says, which of the following would result in a quotient? Quotient means divide. So all these are going to be division problems. Greater than 4. So the numbers that are greater than 4 are on this side of the number line. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So 3 is less. 144 divided by 12 is 12. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So we have a +12, so that is up here. So we already know that it has to be B. But let's just check real quick. -16 divided by 4 is a negative, so that would be less. So we're over here somewhere. 180 divided by -1 makes it a -180, so we're way back here. So it has to be B. 34 says that Jim and Carla are scuba diving. Jim started out 12 feet below. So we'll start by just looking at where Jim is. He descended 8. Descended means goes down. So he's at -12 and goes down 8. Now he's at -20. Then he rose 5. That means goes up 5. So now he's back at -15. And then he descended 15 more feet. So he goes down 15. So -15, go down 15. Now he's at -30. So that's where Jim is. Now let's look at where Carla is. She started out at the surface, so she's at 0. Then she descended 15. So now she's at -15. Descended means goes down. She rose 2, so she goes up 2. She's getting closer to the surface, so now she's at -13. Then she descended another 10 feet. So she went down 10. So if she was -13 and then went down 10 more, she ends up at -23. So it asks you who rested at a greater depth. So who's deeper? Who's underwater more? So we can see that -30 is deeper than the -23. So it has to be Jim because he's 30 feet below the surface. 35 said Mr. Coleman is charged 3. It's charged $3. So charged means minus or negative. If he's charged 3 each day and he's charged for 9 days, negative 3 times 9, that equals a negative 27. You know he's going to owe a lot. So it has to be D. 36 says Jack and Diane participated in a weight loss program. Jack lost 6 pounds per month for 7 months. So Jack lost 6 for 7 months. So he lost 42 pounds altogether. And then Diane, she lost 4 pounds per month for 8 months. So that means that she lost 32 altogether. And then it asks for their total weight loss. So you've got to combine the negative 42 plus the negative 32 to give you negative 74 altogether. That's their total weight loss together. 37 says which expression would result in a negative answer. So you're looking for a negative times a positive or a negative divided by a positive. Negatives and positives, when you multiply or divide, give you negatives. So the only one that does that is B. 38 says which product is incorrect. That means that we're looking for which one of these multiplication problems gives you a wrong answer. So let's just go through one at a time. 4 times 7 is 28, and a positive times a negative is a negative. So that one's right. Negative times a negative is a positive. That's a negative 40. So I can already see that 38 is wrong because a negative times a negative always equals a positive. For 39, it says which quotient, that means division problem, is incorrect. Let's start out just going through it one at a time. So for A, it says negative 20 divided by 4 equals a positive 5. A negative divided by a positive always equals a negative. So it should be negative 5, so it has to be A. A is incorrect. Number 40 says simplify the expression below using the order of operations. Remember, that's our PEMDAS. So we're just going to write it off to the side and go down the line. P is for parentheses or brackets. So I see that first in a bracket. And then I'll look inside the bracket and see the parentheses. So I know I do 6 minus 2 first. So that would be 4. So I'll look again. I still have a parenthesis or a bracket. So I do 0 divided by 4 next. That's 0. Remember, 0 divides anything and equals 0. So I've done my parentheses. I don't see any exponents or radicals, so no exponents. And then M is for multiplication or division, whichever one comes first. I see division, so I'll do 0 divided by negative 2. That's just 0. So I'm done with my division multiplication. So all I see left is my addition. 0 plus 1 is 1. So it should be D. All right, guys, that's it. If you made it this far in the video, put your favorite color in the comments. And if you still have any questions, please let me know. Good luck on your test. Bye.